Chapter 16 Ghost of the Arena. The sky above Jotunheim Arena split with thunder. Not real thunder, of course, just perfect sound design, the kind of digital storm that made your blood hum. Beneath it, the tournament's first global bracket began. Thousands of players from every world had gathered, avatars gleaming with holy armor, demonic wings, or crystalline constructs. Names that had dominated Yggdrasil for years were all here. And then, me, just Traveler_R, no guild tag, no title. Just a silver phantom in a storm. HIME. Arena analysis complete. Environmental variables. Thunder elemental bias, magnetic interference on mana channels, visual noise intensity, 70%. Perfect, I murmured, rolling my shoulders. Let's make it messy. HIME. Acknowledged. I will adapt your illusions to the environment's chaos field. Lightning flickered across my reflection in the glassed floor, not really me, just another illusion waiting to be rewritten. A doppelganger lived in layers, and this arena was about to learn what that meant. Match 1, the Seraph of Muspelheim. My first opponent materialized in a flare of fire and gold, a towering angelic knight wielding twin radiant blades, one wreathed in holy flame. Name: Ilarion Ix, level 92, specialized in anti-magic combat. Traveler_R, he said through proximity chat, voice filtered through an overdesigned voice mod. You rely on trickery, I'll show you the purity of light. I grinned. Light bends too, you know. He charged instantly, wings igniting, holy fields expanding like a miniature sun. That was my cue. I stepped forward, and 8 versions of me stepped forward with me. The real one, he'd never know. Each clone carried its own micro delay, its own data echo, just enough to fool even Yggdrasil's anti-illusion scripts. Ilarion swung, bisecting 2 images, they shattered into digital dust, sending feedback pulses that scrambled his HUD. HIME. Opponent's perception tracking disrupted. Suggest synchronization of mimic protocol. Already on it, I mirrored his stance, copied his sword pattern, and his light parameter values. When he struck again, his own light bent, refracted through my mimic field. And for a moment, the holy flame consumed him. The system broadcasted the end. Winner: Traveler_R, match time, 58 seconds. Match 2, Queen of Frost. Round 2, Niflheim representative. Name: Velgrea, an ice witch draped in translucent silk, wielding blizzards like paint strokes. Her battlefield, an arena of frozen glass suspended over bottomless mist. She bowed slightly. I've heard of you, Ghost. Let's see if illusions can freeze. I tilted my head. They can shatter, too. As soon as the match began, the temperature dropped. Frost bloomed across the arena, real-time weather rendering at its finest. Her spells weren't direct, they sculpted the environment. Walls of ice, reflective surfaces, and delayed impact hexes. Exactly my kind of chaos. I shifted forms, each one blending into the mirrored reflections, creating depth illusions. Every version of me reflected her attacks at slightly altered timing, creating a labyrinth of mirrored movement. Velgrea. Impossible, they're not reflections. No, I whispered from behind her, blade against her back. They're rehearsals. She turned, launching a spiral of frost spikes. But the wrench she struck was already data residue. The real me dropped from above, cutting through the ice beneath her and collapsing the platform. As she fell, she laughed. Velgrea. A fitting end. Illusions never die, do they? Only when the viewer stops believing. The system announced my win again. Match 3, Ogre King Bashar. Then came Brute Force Incarnate. Level 93, a mountain of red muscle and spiked armor, dual-wielding clubs that could flatten most tanks. He didn't wait for formalities. He jumped. The entire arena shook. I let him hit me. The impact sent my body flying across the arena, smashing into the barrier wall. Spectators gasped. Then the body glitched, and split, and melted. My illusion had taken the hit for me. The real me stood behind him, invisible, feeding data from his previous swing into my mimic buffer. He swung again, faster this time, spinning his clubs in a hurricane. I matched his rhythm perfectly. Copied, accelerated, distorted. Every motion he made became his own undoing. When the echo delay loop reached 0.5 seconds, I snapped my fingers. The air exploded, kinetic energy, his energy, reflected backward into him. He collapsed to his knees, body flickering red with lethal feedback damage. Winner: Traveler_R, match time, 71 seconds. Match 4, the Oracle of Alfheim. The fourth was my favorite, a strategist, not a brute. The Oracle, a silver-haired elf, level 94. Specialized in predictive magic, seeing moves seconds before they happened. Traveler_R, she said, smiling serenely. I see 1,000 possibilities. You lose in all of them. I smiled back. Then let's add one more. From the start, I knew I couldn't outfight her. Every move I made, she anticipated, illusions, shifts, data tricks. She countered them with precision. So I stopped moving. HIME, Ren-sama, are you? Shish, let her predict nothing. By doing nothing, I removed myself from her algorithm. Her foresight relied on data flow, visual, magical, environmental. I cut it all off. To her, I ceased to exist. When I finally struck, it wasn't an illusion or a spell. It was a data rewrite. I flipped my identity flag mid-frame, appearing in her system not as Traveler_R, but as Oracle_alias_02. For 0.3 seconds, her perception recognized me as herself. She froze. Oracle. What? My blade passed through her chest, and her avatar dissolved in a cascade of light. Winner. Traveler_R, match time, 89 seconds. By the time I left the fourth arena, the crowd had stopped cheering for me. Now they just watched, silent, captivated, maybe even a little afraid. To them, I wasn't a player anymore. I was something else, something unpredictable, untouchable. The ghost of Yggdrasil. HIME, you are trending, Ren-sama. Player analysis threads have begun labeling you as the Doppelgänger algorithm. Traveler_R, hey. Sounds more like a horror story. HIME, you are aware that your combat data no longer conforms to human behavioral patterns. Traveler_R, that's the point. I looked up at the storm still brewing over Jotunheim. Every flash of lightning reflected across the arena, fracturing my reflection into hundreds of selves. Each one a version of me, each one ready to fight. The next round would be the real test. Because now, the world had seen what I could do. And somewhere, deep in the system logs, the developers had noticed too. End of Chapter 16 Ghost of the Arena. 1 comments 0 vote. Chapter 17 The Fractured Mirror. Chapter 17 The Fractured Mirror. By the time the quarterfinals began, my name was everywhere. Traveler_R, the Doppelganger Ghost, the Data Trickster. Every forum, every stream, every theory post. Some called me a genius. Some called me a hacker. And a few, the smart ones, called me a problem. The arenas had grown larger, darker. The audience louder. Even the air seemed charged differently now, like Yggdrasil itself was watching. I stood at the center of the storm arena again, lightning flashing across a broken sky. Crowds of players filled the floating stands, betting on whether the illusionist would finally lose. But this time, my opponents weren't rushing in blind. They'd learned, and that made this fun again. HIME, Ren-sama, opponent analysis complete. Average level range, 93 to 98. Estimated success rate. Don't say it, I interrupted with a grin. Let's just call it, likely. HIME, acknowledged. Probability omitted. Quarterfinal match 1, Breaker of Veils. The first opponent was built to counter me. A monk-class hybrid named Kaizen, known across the forums for mastering anti-illusion combat. His build specialized in true sight, key detection, and aura focus, every one of them designed to bypass false images. He bowed before the fight. No offense, Ghost, but I've studied you for a week straight. I smirked. Then you should have learned that studying an illusion just gives it your name. He attacked with frightening precision. His fists weren't fast, they were right. Every motion carried calculated timing, breaking through 3 layers of illusion instantly. He saw through my first trick, deflected my clone decoys, even resisted a partial mimic attempt by sheer instinct. HIME, opponent's cognitive tracking exceeds standard parameters. Suggest elevation to high-tier illusion field. Already there, the air shimmered, the world fractured. The entire arena duplicated itself. Not one illusion, but 5 parallel environments overlaid together. To Kaizen, each movement created conflicting sensory data, one set of footsteps in every world, each a heartbeat out of sync. For the audience, it looked like a storm of ghosts. Kaizen, you're not real, neither are you. I shifted my form mid-strike, copied his aura pattern, and hit him with his own true sight pulse. The moment his detection overloaded, his screen went white. A clean knockout. But this time, it had taken nearly 2 minutes. Winner. Traveler_R, match time, 2:04. Quarterfinal match 2, Runic Vanguard. The second opponent was a tank, a wall of steel and glyphs named Aegis Born, level 97. A living fortress. He entered without fanfare, just raised his tower shield and said, "Your tricks won't work on blessed runes." "Then I'll just have to get creative," I said, rolling my neck. The fight began with thunderous force. Every spell I cast shattered against his barrier: Reflect Magic, Runic Denial, Area Seal. My illusions fizzled. He advanced with slow, unstoppable steps, runes burning brighter with each swing of his hammer. He thought I'd panic. He thought wrong. HIME, Ren-sama, no illusion has penetrated his defenses. Suggest adaptation through data layer interference. Yeah, let's cheat a little. Instead of creating false images, I used my data trickster subroutine, rewriting the arena's reflection data. It wasn't an illusion, it was the environment itself mimicking movement. Aegis Born swung through one illusion, 2, 3. But each one rebounded sound, pressure, and physics. He couldn't tell which collision was real. In frustration, he activated his ultimate, Sanctum Break. A dome of holy light detonated outward, obliterating everything false. The crowd roared as my form disintegrated. Then they went silent when a second me rose from his shadow. Traveler_R, you forgot, even shadows have data. I drove my blade upward through his unprotected back. Victory again, but slower. Harder. Winner. Traveler_R, match time, 3:47. Quarterfinal match 3, Siren of Alfheim. Her name was Lyrane, a bard class enchantress who specialized in sound illusions, a mirror to my own craft. She wasn't a brute. She was elegant, terrifyingly calm, and her arena looked like a dream painted in moonlight. Lyrane, I've always admired your work, Traveler_R. But illusions belong to beauty, not deception. Traveler_R, you say that like they're different things. Music filled the air, waves of sound magic disrupting my casting rhythm. She used harmony fields, canceling out visual illusions with counter-frequency vibrations. Genius. I countered by mirroring her rhythm. My own illusions began to sing back. Our fight turned into a duet, each note shaping reality for a split second, undoing and remaking existence at tempo. Even HIME stayed silent, calculating in awe. When the final verse echoed, both of us stood still, her melody fading, my heartbeat loud in my ears. One note off beat, one flicker too slow, that was all I needed. Traveler_R, your song's in 6/8. Mine's in 7. My final strike synced perfectly with the measure break, slicing through her remaining barrier when her timing loop reset. The crowd's applause was thunderous this time. Winner. Traveler_R, match time, 5:12. Quarterfinal match 4, Golem Architect. The last of the quarterfinals was a nightmare. Tarkin the Architect, level 98. A crafter-type player who weaponized construct summoning. He didn't fight directly, he built mid-battle. His arena spawned terrain, structures, and autonomous golems, an entire miniature dungeon forming around him. Tarkin, I wonder how you handle an illusion you didn't make. Good question. He flooded the arena with mechanical constructs, each one emitting mana interference fields. Illusions failed instantly within their radius. But that was fine. Because illusions weren't my only trick anymore. I used Data Trickster, reverse compile, absorbing his own golem data into my buffer. Their structures twisted, mirrored, inverted, until every golem he built became my version of it. Metal mirrored metal, machine fought machine. It was chaos, but I thrived in chaos. In the end, I reached him as his last construct shattered, sparks raining like fireflies. Traveler_R, you're good. But every system has recursion. Tarkin. And recursion means, Traveler_R, I get to win twice. He vanished in the explosion that followed. Winner. Traveler_R, match time, 6:29. When the dust settled, the crowd chanted my name again. Not like before, not with our fear, but with excitement. They'd stopped thinking of me as some bug or hacker. Now I was the underdog, the illusionist standing against titans. And I was winning. HIME, Ren-sama, you are through to the semifinals. However, your patterns are becoming predictable. Traveler_R, I know. HIME, recommendation, alter your perception layers or risk exposure to counter strategies. Traveler_R, already planning something. If they think they know my patterns, then next round. I smiled at my reflection in the thunder glass floor, my silver skin flickering between a dozen forms. I'll let them fight something that isn't me at all. End of Chapter 17. The Fractured Mirror. 0 comments, 0 vote. Chapter 18. The Ghost Ascends. Chapter 18. The Ghost Ascends. The semifinals. The crowd was roaring before the system even loaded my avatar. By now, Traveler_R had become a spectacle, the silver phantom that no one could predict, the doppelganger who danced on data itself. But tonight, the arena wasn't just full of cheers. It was full of hunters. They'd studied me. They'd rehearsed my every move, dissected my illusions frame by frame, mapped my delay timings and mimic triggers. This was no longer a tournament. It was an exorcism. Everyone wanted to be the one who finally made the ghost disappear. Semifinal Match 1, the Dragon Saint. Name, Kaldrin. Race, Half-Dragon. Level, 99. Job, Paladin plus Draconic Monk Hybrid. A walking storm of anti-magic and holy buffs, my natural enemy. The arena opened high above Muspelheim, surrounded by pillars of flame and ash. He didn't waste time. Wings unfurled, sword blazing with divine light. Kaldrin, your illusions end here, Shadow. I chuckled. Then let's see if the light can hit what it can't define. He struck first, holy flares scorching the sky, his true vision pierced illusions instantly. The crowd gasped. He could see everything. Perfect. That's what I wanted, because while his eyes saw my illusions, his soul didn't. I activated Data Trickster, Recursive Echo. My form shattered into recursive afterimages, not illusions, but time-delayed projections from earlier data frames. He hit me once, twice, 10 times, but each strike landed on a version of me that had existed 3 seconds ago. By the time his buffs expired, he realized he'd been fighting a recording. The real me appeared above him, wings of false light flaring. Traveler_R, you were right, Kale. The light always wins. I dropped my blade through his helmet. Traveler_R, when it's a reflection. Winner. Traveler_R, match time, 2:47. Semifinal Match 2, Mirror Knight Verdun. The second opponent was Poetic Justice, a mirror user. Verdun of Alfheim, level 98. His entire build revolved around reflection, duplication, and reversal. He could copy opponents' abilities for brief windows. In theory, he was the perfect counter to me. Verdun. Traveler_R. The doppelganger meets his own reflection. Traveler_R. Then I guess one of us will have to blink first. The arena was a shining hall of glass, endless mirrors that fractured the horizon. He started by mimicking my form, silver skin, flickering aura, same weapons. For the audience, it was breathtaking, 2 identical phantoms weaving through mirrored walls, illusions spilling into infinity. He was fast, frighteningly so. But every time he copied me, he made a fatal mistake. He froze for 0.2 seconds while the data compiled. That was enough. HIME. Timing window acquired. Execute phase reflection disruption. Traveler_R, do it. I triggered illusion field collapse, turning all reflections in the arena into real space. The mirrors became solid clones, thousands of me, each overlapping and moving independently. Verdun couldn't tell which one was executing which command. He tried to copy me again. Instead, the system returned. Error. Target entity exists in multiple instances. His screen froze. Mine didn't. I sliced him through his own reflection, the shattering sound echoing like breaking glass and thunder combined. Winner. Traveler_R, match time, 2:11. Final match, Valkyrie of Jotunheim. Lightning, snow, silence. The final stage was carved from pure storm, a colossal floating arena above the clouds. Every arc of thunder looked close enough to touch. Across from me stood Ire, the Valkyrie of Jotunheim. Level 100, an absolute monster. Unlike everyone before, she didn't smirk or taunt. She simply nodded and said, "Show me the limit of your illusion, traveler." I bowed slightly. "Show me the truth of your resolve." She attacked first, and the world ended. Lightning surged in all directions, forming a cage of holy spears. Wings of light carried her across the field, faster than I could blink. Every illusion I cast shattered instantly. Her skill Oathbreaker Halo negated all non-physical projections. The crowd screamed. For the first time, I looked vulnerable. HIME. Ren Sama, illusions ineffective. You cannot mirror or displace within this environment. I know, I whispered. HIME. Recommendation. Stop pretending. I dropped every layer of illusion, every visual mask, every data echo, until only my true self remained. The greatest doppelganger. Level 95. Unmasked. Unfiltered. She charged. I smiled. My body split apart, not as clones, but as stored identities. 90 memories, each a copy of a player I had analyzed before. Every form fought for 1 second, the flame demon lord of Muspelheim, the storm giant of Jotunheim, the oracle of Alfheim. All merging into one seamless dance. I became a chorus of data. Every swing I made came from someone else's strength. Every parry from someone else's history. I countered every blow, wings shining brighter, until our blades met in one blinding crash of lightning and illusion. The entire arena went white. When the light faded, I was behind her, blade resting on her shoulder. She froze, realization dawning in her eyes. You turned my own lightning into your illusion. Traveler_R, no. I smiled faintly. Traveler_R, I just convinced the world you'd already won. The system voice boomed across the sky. Winner. Traveler_R, match time, 2:58. Champion of Jotunheim, crowned. The lightning ceased. The audience erupted. For a brief second, as confetti and light fell like snow, I simply stood there, silent. Not because I couldn't believe it, but because it felt inevitable. I wasn't the strongest, I was simply the one who understood the system best. HIME. Congratulations, Ren-sama. You are now officially recognized as the Jotunheim World Champion. Traveler_R, hey. Feels, light. HIME. Do you regret it? Traveler_R, no. Just wondering what comes next. HIME. Your match data has drawn developer attention. You will receive direct contact soon. I exhaled slowly, watching the lightning fade into digital dusk. So the real game's about to begin, huh? HIME. It always was. The storm above Jotunheim Arena shimmered with impossible color, not lightning, but something deeper. A pulse in the system itself. And for just a moment, I could swear the game was watching back. End of Chapter 18. The Ghost Ascends. 0 comments 0 vote. Chapter 19. The Crown of the Nine Worlds. Chapter 19. The Crown of the Nine Worlds. The next morning, the storm over Jotunheim Arena had quieted. No lightning, no chaos, just silence, the kind that follows when the world itself holds its breath. The global chat was overflowing, filled with praise, disbelief, and theories about how a level 95 doppelganger had defeated level 100 elites. But none of that mattered. Today wasn't about the fight. Today was the ceremony. The floating citadel of Asgard Prime, normally restricted to system administrators, had been opened for 1 day only, for the coronation of the world champions of Yggdrasil. 9 colossal pillars of light extended across the sky, each representing one of the realms: Helheim, Niflheim, Muspelheim, Vanaheim, Jotunheim, Alfheim, Nidavellir, Midgard, and Asgard itself. In the center hovered a vast circular platform of pure energy, the stage of immortality, where winners stood not as players, but as legends. When I materialized there, hundreds of avatars already filled the space, the top players from every realm. Some wore their battle gear, others had changed into elegant ceremonial outfits made for the occasion. And above us floated the system avatars, the developers, represented as radiant silhouettes formed of light and code, voices echoing in harmonic chorus. System broadcast. Welcome, champions of Yggdrasil. The air itself seemed to vibrate with authority. Their forms flickered between humanoid and geometric, half divine, half digital. One of them stepped forward, voice calm and layered with faint distortion. Developer Entity 01, you have all reached the peak of your realms. Through mastery, strategy, and courage, you have defined the upper limit of what Yggdrasil players can achieve. Another followed, tone slightly warmer. Developer Entity 02, today, we grant the honor of the World Champion class. A special ultimate class, unique to each victor. Its growth potential is limitless, but it requires sacrifice. The crowd stirred. Developer Entity 03, players above level 95 may choose to reduce their level to 95 in exchange for the World Champion class integration. Dozens of murmurs erupted immediately, high-level players whispering to one another. Drop my level, no way, but it's an ultimate class. Even a divine tier player can't evolve that far without one. I stayed silent. The devs didn't even glance at me, they already knew. Developer Entity 01. For Jotunheim's champion, this is unnecessary. His level already meets the requirement threshold. The light dimmed, focusing on me. The air shimmered with blue static. Developer Entity 02. Traveler_R, World Champion of Jotunheim. Your performance in the finals was remarkable, a demonstration of data manipulation and adaptive combat beyond expectation. Your records have been verified. No anomalies detected. I almost laughed at that last part. No anomalies. HIME, hovering invisibly behind my interface, stayed quiet, but I could feel her running millions of silent calculations, watching the dev's every data signature. Traveler_R, I'm honored, I said, voice calm, tone neutral. Developer Entity 03, as recognition, you, and every champion here, will receive the champion's creation right. You may each forge one divine class item, custom built to your parameters. Such items may approach the lower boundary of world-class functionality. Gasps filled the hall. Even the veterans, players who'd seen everything, went silent. Divine class items custom built by the devs themselves. That was unheard of. Developer Entity 01, each of you will be contacted directly. A developer will assist in your creation process to ensure stability within Yggdrasil's balance parameters. Developer Entity 02, additionally, based on cumulative performance data from the tournament logs, we recognize the following players as the top 3 across all realms. The holographic screen flared open in front of us, displaying names in shimmering gold text. Traveler_R, Champion of Jotunheim. Touch Me, Champion of Alfheim. Volgrim, Champion of Helheim. Applause erupted, cheers, fireworks, bursts of color magic across the entire citadel. Even the stoic players couldn't hide their excitement. Developer Entity 03, the top 3 champions will receive an additional reward, to be disclosed privately. Expect direct contact within the next system cycle. I bowed slightly. My guild would lose its mind when they heard about this, though none of them even knew where I was right now. For once, it felt strange to stand there without the 3 burning eye insignia. Just me, the ghost, unmasked before the gods of this world. After the ceremony, the champions mingled freely, the greatest players from every realm gathered in one space. I spoke briefly with Touch Me, the paladin from Alfheim who had taken second place. He was courteous, charismatic, and powerful, his silver armor shining like a mirror. Touch Me, you're not what I expected. I thought you'd be colder. Traveler_R, I'm an illusionist. We specialize in being surprising. Touch Me, well, if you ever need someone to tank for your guild, I'll answer. You fought beautifully. We exchanged friend codes. Even Volgrim, the undead champion from Helheim, approached with a grin made of bone. Volgrim, you fought like a monster. I respect that. If you ever want to spar in the Undercrypt, I'll prepare an arena. Traveler_R, you mean a trap. Volgrim, same thing, isn't it? We both laughed. The developers soon dismissed the assembly, their lights dimming one by one until only the echoes of their voices remained. Developer Entity 01, congratulations once more, champions of Yggdrasil. The 9 worlds have witnessed your glory. May your legend inspire new worlds yet to come. The system light faded, the arena dissolved into cascading particles of gold. And just like that, the gods were gone, leaving us alone, crowned by data and applause. As we drifted toward the teleport gate, I opened my friend list. New names sparkled there: Touch Me, Volgrim, Kaldrin, Lyrain, even Kaizen and Aegis Born. All of them sent quick messages. Congrats, unbelievable match. Looking forward to seeing what you build. It was strange, the ghost of Yggdrasil, finally connected to everyone. HIME, Ren Sama, incoming encrypted message. Source, administrative channel. My eyes narrowed. Already, HIME, yes, sender identification. Developer Entity 02. Subject, regarding your reward. I exhaled slowly, feeling a grin tug at my lips. So it begins. End of Chapter 19. The Crown of the 9 Worlds. 0 comments, 0 vote. Chapter 20. The Forge of Divinity. Chapter 20. The Forge of Divinity. The world dissolved around me, light unraveling into pure white. For a few seconds, I floated in silence, weightless, unanchored, like a fragment of code adrift between realities. There was no wind, no sound, only a slow pulse of energy running through the void. It was the familiar transition space reserved for administrative transport, something only developers could trigger. A second later, color returned. The whiteness folded inward, bending space like glass, and I landed softly on a reflective surface that rippled under my feet. When the light settled, I found myself standing in a vast chamber of mirrored crystal and glowing circuitry. It was immense, like standing inside the heart of a living computer. Streams of code fell from the ceiling in translucent ribbons, raining softly across the walls. Lines of light pulsed along the floor, forming patterns that looked half technological, half magical. The air was perfectly still, yet humming with life. I had seen pictures of this place once, hidden deep within old developer interviews and data leaks, the developers' hall. A zone supposedly restricted even from most staff. A myth among players, where legends said the administrators shaped reality itself. And now, I was standing in it. At the center of the hall, a single figure waited. Cloaked in shifting light, their body was only half visible, an outline more than a person, flickering between human shape and streams of data. They turned toward me, the glow of their form reflecting off the mirrored floor. Developer Entity 02, welcome, Traveler_R. Their voice was layered, calm, digitally filtered, but unmistakably human beneath the distortion. Developer Entity 02, congratulations once again on your victory. Your combat log was remarkable. I tilted my head, offering a small smile. Thank you, it was a good challenge. The developer chuckled softly. Even filtered through synthetic resonance, it was clear and human. Developer Entity 02, now comes the part few ever experience, creation. As the champion of Jotunheim, you have earned the right to design your own divine class item. Speak your wish, and we will manifest it. For a while, I didn't answer. The light beneath my feet shimmered with fractal patterns, reflecting the weight of my silence. My reflection wavered in the mirrored floor, showing not my human form, but the true silver sheen of my doppelganger self. A divine class item, something beyond the reach of normal players. A symbol of mastery, of creation itself. I could make anything, a weapon, a relic, even an artifact that defied the rules of Yggdrasil. And yet, as my mind played with endless possibilities, a single thought anchored me. Destruction was easy, I'd done it 1,000 times. What I wanted now, was control. Something that could stop chaos without feeding it. Finally, I raised my gaze. I want something that doesn't destroy, I said quietly, but binds. The developer's glowing outline shifted slightly. Developer Entity 02, elaborate. Not a sword, not a staff, just chains, I said, flexing my fingers as if I could already feel the weight of them. Thin ones. They link between my fingers, 10 in total. Each can extend outward and lock onto a target. They don't deal damage, instead, they seize motion. The more the target resists, the stronger the hold. It freezes their data threads in place. There was a pause, a small silence, as if the system itself was listening. Developer Entity 02, a restraint-type artifact. You wish to immobilize rather than kill. Yes, I said simply. I already have too many ways to destroy. I want something that lets me control the fight completely. The figure tilted their head. The light around them flickered in soft rhythm, like someone nodding thoughtfully. Developer Entity 02, a pragmatic request. Effective for one who commands illusion and mimicry. They raised one hand, and the entire chamber reacted. Lines of code spiraled upward from the floor, twisting into luminous threads. They intertwined in elegant, deliberate motion, forming 10 slender strands of silver light. The room dimmed, and the only illumination came from those 10 glowing ribbons floating between us. They drifted toward me, circling my hands. When they touched my fingers, they solidified, becoming delicate chains that looped between my knuckles like jewelry made of living light. They pulsed faintly, synchronizing with my heartbeat. When I moved my hand, they moved too, trailing soft arcs of light that faded into shadow. Developer Entity 02, the shackles of karmic silence. A divine class item bound to your soul signature. Capable of manifesting 10 ethereal chains that can restrain one or multiple targets. Targets above your level may resist, but only for seconds. Once bound, they cannot move, cast, or teleport. I turned my hand, watching the chains glimmer across my fingers. They were beautiful, too beautiful for a weapon. Traveler_R, perfect. Developer Entity 02, its cooldown is 1 hour. Use it well. Remember, it is not meant to dominate, but to balance. I nodded, understood. For the first time, the light that cloaked them softened. The figure folded their arms, posture shifting from divine poise to something unmistakably human. Developer Entity 02, you know, most champions ask for power. Damage multipliers, unbreakable armor, weapons that consume souls. You're the first in a long time to ask for restraint. I smiled faintly, because power without control is just noise. And I like quiet victories. That made the developer laugh, a small, genuine sound. Developer Entity 02, spoken like a real illusionist. They turned slightly, interacting with something invisible, an interface only they could see. Lines of golden light rose across the chamber as they spoke again. Developer Entity 02, there is one more thing. As the overall victor of the World Tournament, you are entitled to a secondary reward. The air before me thickened. From the center of the hall, a small crystal sphere materialized, clear as glass, yet radiating power so dense that the world seemed to bend around it. It floated into my hand with weight that wasn't physical but conceptual. Developer Entity 02, a world-class item. One that can only be used once. I blinked, stunned. You're giving me a real WCI. The developer nodded, light flickering softly. Developer Entity 02, yes. But unlike others, this one has no form. It is a catalyst. When invoked, it amplifies one of your unique abilities, any ability except your ultimate skill, World Break. Once used, it will vanish forever. I rolled the orb in my palm. Inside, faint light pulsed like a heartbeat. Traveler_R, so it's potential, made solid. Developer Entity 02, exactly. A tool of evolution, not destruction. The silence that followed was heavy, yet not uncomfortable. It was the silence of creation, the pause before a universe is born. Finally, the developer spoke again, voice quieter. Developer Entity 02, you've done well, Traveler_R. But remember this, your journey is not over. What you've seen of Yggdrasil, it's only a fragment. Less than 15% of its true structure. I frowned. 15%? Are you serious? Developer Entity 02, quite. The rest remains hidden. Worlds within worlds, sub-realms beneath the roots of the world tree, systems we've buried for players to find. You're one of the few who looked beyond mechanics and saw design. They paused, their tone softening further. The distortion in their voice faded slightly, revealing the human warmth behind it. Developer Entity 02, keep doing that. The more you uncover, the more Yggdrasil itself will grow. That's what this game was built for, curiosity, not conquest. I hesitated, then nodded slowly. Then I'll keep looking. That's what I do best. Developer Entity 02, good. You're precisely the kind of player this world was made for. The crystal orb in my hand pulsed, reacting to my heartbeat. The chains around my fingers shimmered faintly, resonating with it, like they recognized their sibling in power. For a moment, the chamber dimmed, and I could hear the faint hum of Yggdrasil's living code all around me. It sounded almost like wind through trees, calm, ancient, alive. The developer watched me quietly. Developer Entity 02, you know, we used to have players like you all the time. I looked up. Used to. Developer Entity 02, yes. Before everything became about rankings and DPS charts. Before worlds turned into battlegrounds of numbers instead of imagination. Their voice grew softer. You remind me of why we built this place in the first place. Something about the tone struck me. For the first time, the entity before me didn't sound like a system administrator. They sounded like a person, a creator proud and tired at once. Traveler_R, then maybe it's good I'm still here to keep breaking things. They laughed, the sound echoing warmly through the crystal hall. Developer Entity 02, please, don't break too much. We still have maintenance cycles. I'll try not to. Developer Entity 02, that's not reassuring. We both laughed this time. Eventually, their tone turned more professional again. Developer Entity 02, now, Traveler_R. One last thing before you go. They extended a hand. A projection appeared beside me, my character file, shimmering in transparent panels of light. My stats, class trees, even fragments of system logs. Developer Entity 02, you understand what you've done, don't you? I blinked. Won a tournament. Developer Entity 02, no. You've demonstrated that the game can evolve with a player, not just around them. That's not supposed to happen. Systems learn from repetition, but they don't adapt creatively. You made the system question its own logic. For a moment, I didn't know how to reply. Traveler_R, You make it sound like I broke the game. Developer Entity 02, not broke. Tot. They smiled faintly. HIME's data processing subroutine was built for pattern learning, correct? Yeah. Developer Entity 02. Then I suspect she learned more than you realize. Don't worry, she's perfectly within system boundaries. But you may find her responses more human as time passes. My chest tightened slightly, though I didn't let it show. Traveler_R, then I'll keep her safe. She's part of me. Developer Entity 02, I know. And that's why I'm giving you this. They flicked a hand, and a small packet of code, no larger than a spark, floated toward me. Developer Entity 02, a developer's key. One-time administrative clearance. It lets you access any sealed area once. After that, it will dissolve. I stared at the flickering light hovering above my palm. Why give me this? Developer Entity 02, because every world needs someone who keeps asking questions. Consider it an invitation to look deeper. The light in the chamber began to dim, a gentle signal that our session was ending. The developer's form flickered, becoming fainter. Developer Entity 02, Traveler_R, Ren, right. My breath caught. You know my name. Developer Entity 02, of course. You registered it years ago. Don't worry, I'm not here to invade your privacy. I just wanted to remind you that behind every avatar, every illusion, there's still a human being. Don't lose that. I stared at them for a moment, words caught in my throat. Then I nodded slowly. I'll try not to. Developer Entity 02, good. Then our work here is done. They took a step back, folding their hands behind them. Developer Entity 02, Traveler_R, the game may end, but curiosity never should. Keep seeking beyond what's shown. The world always rewards those who ask why. I smiled faintly. Then I'll keep breaking the rules. Gently. They chuckled one last time. Developer Entity 02, as long as you understand them first. The light enveloped me again, dissolving the chamber into cascading lines of code. The world blurred, colors bleeding into each other. Then came the pull, the familiar tug of teleportation. When vision returned, I was standing beneath the open sky of Jotunheim. The stars shimmered like scattered gems above the snowy expanse. The cold wind brushed against my face, carrying the scent of frost and ozone. In my right hand, the crystal orb glowed softly, faint light pulsing like a living heart. On my fingers, 10 silver chains shimmered faintly, catching the starlight like liquid moonfire. For a long while, I just stood there, watching them glimmer. The world felt different now. Not bigger, but deeper. Every gust of wind, every flicker of aurora, felt connected to something unseen. For the first time since I'd entered Yggdrasil, I didn't feel like a ghost passing through the data. I felt like I'd finally left a mark, small, invisible maybe, but mine. HIME, Ren-sama, are you satisfied with the outcome? I smiled faintly. Yeah, for now. HIME, the developer's tone indicated approval. Yeah, weird, right, I thought they'd sound more like gods. HIME, they are merely humans, Ren-sama. Builders of worlds. Maybe that's enough, I murmured, gazing at the glowing orb. Maybe being human is the best kind of god. The wind howled softly across the mountains. The chains on my fingers chimed like bells, soft, resonant, alive. I clenched my hand, and 10 threads of light spread outward, fading into the cold night air. They didn't burn or cut. They simply moved, like they were listening. And as the stars shimmered above the frozen world, I felt it again, the pulse of the system, the rhythm of something vast and curious, whispering back. I wasn't just playing the game anymore. I was part of its heartbeat. A builder, a seeker, a ghost who'd learned how to create. End of Chapter 20. The Forge of Divinity. 1 comments 0 vote. Chapter 21. The Smiling Mask. Chapter 21. The Smiling Mask. The volcanic air of Muspelheim shimmered in waves of heat, painting the horizon in molten gold. Even here, in one of Yggdrasil's most hostile realms, our meeting place looked almost mundane, a hollow cavern carved deep into a black cliff, its entrance hidden by smoke and flickering ember light. It wasn't our actual base, of course. The true Three Burning Eye Guild base, Aeternum Sanctum, was safely tucked inside its portable world item form, sealed within the crystal staff I carried. But for appearances, we always met like this, in a neutral zone, untraceable, off-grid. Inside the cavern, dozens of shimmering holographic sigils glowed along the obsidian walls. Each represented an active guild connection, our members phasing in from all across Yggdrasil. When I stepped inside, the chatter hit me immediately. Yo, Trave, took you long enough. World champion shows up fashionably late, huh? Can't blame him, he's famous now. Ha, yeah, our boss is a celebrity. Their laughter filled the space, bright and chaotic. I waved one hand lazily, smiling under my hat. Relax, I'm only late because Muspelheim's weather tried to roast me alive. Again. That earned a few more chuckles. Even though most of them didn't know my real name, Traveler_R, or Trave, as they called me, had become something of a legend among our group. After the World Tournament, the guild chat had exploded with speculation. My victory wasn't just unexpected, it was absurd. I'd beaten players who had specialized combat builds, perfect coordination, years of grinding. And now, as everyone gathered for our regular meeting, I could sense the curiosity radiating off them like heat from the volcanic floor. There were 9 of us in the core circle, the original founders of 3 Burning Eye. Mizuki, our chaos-loving assassin from Alfheim, was sprawled across a glowing rock, chewing on something that looked suspiciously like roasted wyvern meat. Sergei, the taciturn knight from Midgard, stood quietly near the back, his full plate armor reflecting the flicker of magma. Nash, the crafter from Nidavellir, fiddled with a floating schematic, half listening and half revising blueprints. And then there was Enra, the elemental mage from Niflheim, our guild's unofficial voice of reason, who looked at me with the same mix of curiosity and exasperation she always did when I pulled something dramatic. So, she began, pushing her glasses up her nose. Before we start, can we acknowledge the obvious? Our dear Trave just became a world champion and didn't even tell us until the system announcement popped up. All eyes turned to me. I raised both hands, palms outward. In my defense, I was a bit busy not dying to level 100 players. Mizuki snorted. Oh, sure. Too busy winning to brag. How tragic. The laughter came again, but underneath it I could feel the real question simmering. It was in the glances, the faint hush between jokes, the tension in the air. They wanted to ask it, but no one wanted to be first. So I saved them the trouble. All right, I said, exhaling, before anyone asks, yeah. The rumors are true. I let the illusion drop. A ripple passed through the air around me, bending light like water. The default human form, tall, dark-haired, unremarkable, peeled away like old paint, replaced by my real self. The temperature in the cavern dropped a few degrees as the change completed. The figure standing before them wasn't human. My skin shimmered faintly, pale as moonlight, with faint silver lines tracing geometric shapes along my arms and neck, like living circuitry. My face was smooth, featureless except for a faint carved smile where a mouth should be, and my eyes burned softly with shifting color, blue, green, silver, cycling endlessly. I wore a white turtleneck, simple and unadorned, matched with white trousers and a crimson overcoat that draped just above my knees. A broad red cowboy hat sat slightly tilted on my head, and around my fingers, 10 faintly glowing chains coiled lazily, like silver serpents asleep in the heat. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Mizuki broke the silence with a dramatic gasp. Oh, my gods, you're hot. Enra groaned audibly. Mizuki, please. Sergei chuckled behind his visor. I can't decide if I should be impressed or terrified. Nash whistled. So you're really a doppelganger, huh? No wonder your stat screens never made sense. Surprise, I said, spreading my hands slightly. The chains followed the motion, flickering with reflected light. Enra crossed her arms. I should have known. You've been manipulating illusions since forever. But I'll admit, I didn't expect this. Neither did I, said another guild member, laughing. You're like some weird mix between a data spirit and a fashion designer. Don't forget cowboy, Mizuki added helpfully. I laughed softly. Yeah, well, I figured if I'm going to reveal my true form, I might as well make it stylish. Enra sighed. You never change. Wouldn't be fun if I did. That got another wave of laughter, but now the tension had shifted. Curiosity gave way to admiration, and a little awe. For years, I'd hidden this side of myself. My Traveler_R identity had always been a mask, human, anonymous, plain. I'd built 3 Burning Eye around deception and secrecy, but the truth was, I didn't hide because I distrusted them. I hid because illusion was my nature. Now, standing here as a true doppelganger, I felt lighter. Mizuki leaned forward, eyes sparkling. Okay, so you have to show us something. I mean, come on. How much can you change? I chuckled. You really want a demonstration? Yes. Half the room answered at once. I raised a hand, fingers flicking once. The air rippled again, like heat shimmer across molten stone. In an instant, my form twisted and reshaped. My white hair darkened, my frame thickened, armor sprouting like scales. When the light cleared, Sergei was staring at Sergei. His identical copy grinned back at him. Hello, handsome. The real Sergei took an involuntary step back. Okay, that's unsettling. Wait, do me next. Mizuki squealed. A flicker, a pulse, and then I was Mizuki, down to the smallest details. The way her tail swished, the mischievous tilt of her grin. Wow, I said in her voice, you're even louder from this side. Hey, laughter erupted through the cavern, echoing off the magma walls. I dropped the illusion with a wave, returning to my real form. Alright, before you all start requesting body doubles, remember, I can only copy up to 95% of someone's power. That's the limit of my racial class. Any more than that, and the data starts breaking apart. Enra raised an eyebrow. 95%. That's still absurd. I shrugged modestly. Hey, balance matters. The devs thought ahead. Greatest doppelgangers aren't supposed to replace gods, just imitate them. Sergei folded his arms. Still, that means you could mimic anyone in this room. You could even fight like us. Technically, yes, I said. But I wouldn't, not unless I needed to. Why not? Because knowing someone's power isn't the same as knowing their soul. That earned a quiet moment. Even Mizuki stopped chewing her meat stick. I smiled faintly, the painted grin on my faceplate catching the red glow of the lava. Power's easy to copy, I said softly. But the heart behind it, the decisions, the instincts, the reasons you fight, those are impossible to duplicate. That's what makes each of you special. Nash gave a low whistle. You're getting philosophical on us, boss. I've been hanging around too many philosophers lately, I said. Developers count, right? That earned another wave of laughter, lighter this time. We spent the next hour just talking. The usual guild business came up, data reports, item trades, network checks, but most of it dissolved into casual banter. Several members had also joined the world tournament, though none made it past the preliminaries. A few complained about overpowered opponents from Alfheim or Asgard. Others shared clips of ridiculous moments, like when one player got disqualified for accidentally nuking an entire spectator platform. It was the kind of chaos I loved most about 3 Burning Eye. For all our reputation as data brokers and spies, at heart we were just players who loved stories. Eventually, the conversation circled back to me again. So, boss, Enra said, leaning back against a rock, what's next for the almighty world champion? I tilted my head thoughtfully. Sleep, maybe. Then, experiments. Experiments? Mizuki asked, eyes wide. I lifted my hand, letting the silver chains glimmer faintly. Let's just say I've got a new toy to test. Their eyes widened as one. That's the divine class item you got, right? Come on, show it. Yeah, what does it do? I smirked. You'll find out soon enough. But trust me, it's not something you want me to use on friends. That shut them up pretty fast. Mizuki pouted. Boo. Enra shook her head. You really enjoy being mysterious, don't you? I chuckled. Occupational hazard of being an illusionist. When the meeting wrapped up, the chatter faded into comfortable silence. One by one, the members logged out or phased back into the system, their holographic sigils winking out like dying embers. Soon it was just me, Enra, and HIME, my ever-present companion, projected as a small, luminous figure floating near my shoulder. Her voice was calm as always. Ren-sama, would you like me to initialize the guild base? Yeah, I said softly. Let's bring it home. The staff materialized in my hand, glowing faintly with divine light. I pressed the crystal head gently against the ground. The world trembled. Rings of light spread outward, forming fractal symbols that crawled across the stone. The air grew heavy, saturated with data. Then, like a mirage solidifying, the entrance to Aeternum Sanctum appeared before us, a grand portal of living crystal framed in molten gold. Enra whistled low. Still gives me chills every time. Same, I admitted. We stepped through together. Inside, The guild base was silent and beautiful as ever. The faint hum of energy filled the air, soft blue lights pulsed along the walls like a heartbeat. It felt like being inside a cathedral built by code and dreamers. HIME floated ahead, scanning systems with her usual precision. Maintenance levels stable, sustainability output at 94%. All defensive protocols online. Good, I said, we'll need everything running smooth for the next phase. Enra raised an eyebrow. Next phase? I smiled faintly. Let's just say the world's about to get more complicated. And I want us ready when it does. She stared at me for a long moment, then sighed. You're never satisfied with normal, are you? Where's the fun in normal? I said, tapping my hat down with a grin. She laughed quietly. You're impossible, Trave. Yeah, I said softly. But at least I'm consistent. Later, when everyone was gone and the base was quiet, I stood alone in the central chamber, the heart of Aeternum Sanctum. I raised my hand. The silver chains rippled across my fingers, responding to my will. They glowed faintly, whispering against the air, alive with power. I remembered what the developer had told me, not to dominate, but to balance. Maybe that's what I'd been trying to do all along, not just in battle, but in everything. To find balance between illusion and truth, between secrecy and trust. For years, I'd hidden my real self behind masks, avatars, jokes, half-truths. But now, surrounded by people who'd seen my true face and still stayed, I realized something simple. Maybe the real illusion wasn't the one I cast on others. Maybe it was the one I cast on myself. The thought made me smile. Or maybe that was just the mask doing it for me. Either way, it felt right. As I turned to leave, HIME's voice followed me softly through the glowing halls. Greater than, Ren-sama. May I say something? Sure. Greater than, your guild, they seem to accept you, even after learning your true nature. Yeah, I said quietly. They did. Greater than, how does that make you feel? I looked down at my hands, the faint glimmer of chains between my fingers, the soft pulse of the orb hanging from my belt. It makes me think, I said slowly, that maybe being seen isn't such a bad thing after all. Greater than, acknowledged, HIME said softly. I am glad. Me too, HIME, I said, smiling beneath the painted grin. Me too. That night, the halls of Aeternum Sanctum glowed brighter than usual. Somewhere deep within the system, I could almost swear the world itself was smiling back. End of Chapter 21. The Smiling Mask. 1 comments 0 vote. Chapter 22. The Weight of Two Worlds. Chapter 22. The Weight of Two Worlds. I woke to the sound of static rain. Not from the sky, there were no skies left worth looking at, but from the air filter embedded in my ceiling, whining as it struggled against the city's radioactive dust. A faint red glow bled through my curtains, the color of another dawn poisoned by fallout. The world outside had been gray for as long as I could remember. Even the light looked tired. My eyes adjusted slowly. For a moment, I forgot where I was. Then the familiar ache returned. The weight of metal pressed against my legs, the exoskeletal frame that let me move around my room, if only a few steps at a time. Right, home, or rather, my designated living unit. 16 years old, child of one of the richest industrial families in Neo-Tokyo, and still treated like a ghost. I pushed myself upright, the exosuit's servo motors humming faintly. The movement was clumsy, but it worked. That was enough. The room was exactly as I'd left it, sterile, functional, expensive. Polished white walls, adaptive screen windows showing a digital forest instead of the real ruins outside. Shelves stacked with neatly sealed ration boxes branded with HIME Industries, my family's company. My father's empire. The irony wasn't lost on me. HIME Industries, savior of humanity, feeding the remnants of civilization with synthetic meals grown in biodomes, and their heir, me, barely able to walk, left alone in a glass tower, surviving off nutrient paste and VR immersion. I laughed softly. Congratulations, Ren, I muttered. You're the most productive parasite in the building. The house AI didn't answer. It never did. I checked the digital mail on my wrist screen. As usual, there was a single automated deposit from my parents' corporate account, my monthly living allowance. It was a ridiculous sum, enough to fund a small research lab or buy half a new cybernetic limb. Instead, I did what I always did. I spent it all on gacha. Not in one go, of course. I wasn't that reckless. I like to stretch the suffering out over a few days, savor the pain of pulling duplicate junk items before that one beautiful, rare reward flashed across the screen. Virtual gambling was one of the few things that still felt alive. In a world where even food came from printers, the randomness of gacha was pure chaos. And chaos, I'd decided, was proof the universe hadn't completely died yet. Besides, everything I bought was for Yggdrasil. I turned toward the full immersion capsule nestled in the corner of my room. It gleamed softly under the dim light, a perfect blend of metal and glass. My portal. My real body might be a burden of weak bones and dead nerves, but inside that machine, I was something else entirely. In there, I could move, fight, build, create, I could be. The capsule opened with a hiss of air. I climbed in slowly, the exosuit assisting each motion. The inside smelled faintly of ozone and antiseptic, comforting in its own way. Once the lid sealed, the world faded. And then came the rush. Light, motion, transition. The familiar hum of Yggdrasil's connection sequence filled my senses, data streams aligning with neural sync. When I opened my eyes again, I wasn't in my cold white room anymore. I stood beneath a crimson sky. Muspelheim's heat felt real, the sting of sulfur, the shimmer of molten rivers, the low roar of lava flowing in the distance. My crimson overcoat fluttered lightly in the hot wind as I looked down at my pale hands, at the silver circuits pulsing faintly beneath my doppelganger skin. Welcome back, Ren-sama, came HIME's voice, calm, crystalline, precise. She materialized beside me in a burst of pale blue light, her automaton form hovering gracefully above the scorched ground. Hey, HIME, I said, smiling faintly. Status report. All guild systems nominal. Data collection ongoing. No infiltration detected for 72 hours. Sustain levels holding at 94%. Good, that's higher than I expected. Of course, she replied. I optimize efficiently. I chuckled. You sound proud. I am merely reporting, she said, but I caught the faint upward inflection. Maybe the developer was right, HIME was learning faster these days. I sat on a rock near the mouth of the cavern where our guild usually gathered. The magma's reflection danced across my white clothes like liquid fire. All right, I said, flexing my fingers, let's try something new. HIME's eyes flickered. Do you refer to the divine class item obtained after your tournament victory? Exactly. The chains responded instantly, slithering out from my hands like living streams of silver. They shimmered faintly, each link pulsing with quiet light. The shackles of karmic silence, I murmured, studying their glow. Divine class, system registered, soul bound. Still sounds weird hearing that out loud. Would you like to test its parameters? I grinned. That's why we're here. We started simple. HIME conjured an illusionary projection, a training dummy shaped like a level 80 monster. I flicked my wrist, and one of the chains shot forward with impossible speed, coiling around the dummy in a spiral of light. The moment it made contact, the entire construct froze. I snapped my fingers. The chain released, dissolving into motes of light. Smooth, I said, try something stronger. She nodded, and the next projection shimmered into existence, this time, a simulation of a world enemy model, level 110, configured for defense. The air pressure dropped. Even as a simulation, the thing radiated power. The ground cracked beneath its presence, heat waves bending the air around it. I inhaled slowly. All right, karmic silence, show me what you've got. I moved my hand in a circular motion, feeling the pulse of data through the chains. 10 threads of light burst outward at once, streaking toward the towering enemy. They struck like lightning, wrapping around its massive frame. For a heartbeat, the monster resisted, its aura flaring, muscles straining against the bind. And then, slowly, it stopped. The chains glowed brighter, constricting until even the air seemed frozen around it. Restraint complete, HIME said softly. Target immobilized. I exhaled a quiet laugh. You're telling me, this thing can hold a world enemy. Level 110. She nodded. Correct. However, the duration scales inversely with level difference. Estimated time limit, 13 seconds. 13 seconds, I repeated, leaning back slightly. Enough to rewrite an entire fight if used correctly. Your assessment aligns with tactical projections. Yeah, I said, smiling faintly. It's perfect. For the next few hours, I pushed the limits. Different enemy types, mobility patterns, resistance classes. Each time, the shackles adapted, chains phasing through flame, frost, even pure energy. The restraint never broke early. But there was something else, too. A subtle feeling at the edge of my awareness every time the chains locked onto a target. It wasn't just restraint, it was connection, like the chains were reading the target's data, aligning its motion threads to my own control. For a few seconds, I could almost feel what the enemy felt. It wasn't painful, it was humbling, curious, HIME said, observing. Your neural response spikes during activation, suggesting emotional feedback. I hesitated. Emotional. Perhaps the item's resonance interacts with your avatar's mimicry matrix. Meaning, you are not simply binding your opponent, she said, tilting her head. You are syncing with them. I blinked. So it's like empathy. But with code. She paused. A poetic description, Ren-sama. I chuckled quietly. Well, I'm a poetic kind of guy. We tested for hours more, until the crimson light of Muspelheim began to dim, fading into the dark violet of its artificial night. When I finally dismissed the chains, I sat in silence, staring at my hands. I wonder, I murmured, if power like this makes me any closer to feeling whole. HIME hovered beside me. You are referring to your physical condition. Yeah, I said softly. Out there, I can barely stand. Here, I can do things that defy reason. But when I log out, it's just gone. HIME tilted her head. Does that cause you distress? I thought for a moment. Maybe it used to. Now it just feels like balance. The real world is heavy, slow, predictable. Yggdrasil is light, infinite, unreal. Together, they make sense. She regarded me quietly, her eyes glowing faintly. Then you are content existing between them. I smiled faintly. I wouldn't call it content. More like surviving stylishly. That earned me a rare, almost imperceptible laugh from her. Just a single note, crystalline and fleeting. Later, as we walked toward the guild's portal beacon, I looked up at the sky. The stars of Muspelheim were faint, drowned out by red clouds and volcanic smoke. Still, a few shone stubbornly through the haze. I thought about my father's world, cold, mechanical, logical to the point of cruelty. And then about this one, chaotic, irrational, full of beauty born from lines of code. Maybe, I thought, both were just illusions trying to survive their own decay. Ren-sama, HIME said suddenly, shall I record today's experiment logs? Yeah, I replied. Tag them under karmic silence, phase 1. We'll need the data for the next stage. Understood. I glanced at her. Next time, we'll test integration. Integration, Ren-sama. Yeah, I said, smiling faintly. We still have one more gift left from that tournament, remember? The world-class catalyst. Her eyes brightened. You intend to use it soon. Maybe, I said, but not yet. First, I need to decide what part of me deserves to evolve. When I logged out hours later, the capsule opened with a quiet hiss. The filtered air of the tower smelled sterile again. For a moment, I just lay there, staring at the ceiling. My fingers still twitched faintly, as if the chains were still wrapped around them. The pain in my legs was back, dull and familiar. The real world was unforgiving like that, it never let you forget where you were from. I looked toward the window screen. The artificial forest shimmered softly, green and unreal against the red sky beyond. I smiled. It's not so different, I whispered. Just another illusion. And for once, that thought didn't hurt. End of chapter 22. The Weight of Two Worlds. 0 comments 0 vote. Chapter 23. The Algorithm of God. Chapter 23. The Algorithm of God. The sound of static rain greeted me again as I slipped back into the capsule. It had been 3 days since my last experiment with the shackles of karmic silence, and in those 3 days, I'd done little else besides plan. Not in the real world, of course, there, plans didn't matter. The world outside my capsule ran on systems I couldn't touch. But in Yggdrasil, strategy was the system. And now, I was about to rewrite a piece of it. The capsule sealed shut with a soft hiss. The lights dimmed, neural sync engaged. Welcome, Traveler_R. The world of Yggdrasil bled into view. Burning skies, molten earth, a world built from code and chaos. Muspelheim again, my home base for testing. And as always, HIME was waiting. Ren-sama, connection stable, she reported, her voice soft but sharp, echoing faintly through the heat haze. All systems functioning. Experiment protocols prepared. Good, I said. Then let's begin. I reached into my inventory, summoning the small crystal sphere that glowed faintly like a heartbeat in my hand. The world-class catalyst, the reward from the tournament. It was beautiful in a strange way, fragile, yet dense, like the world's purest data condensed into something that could fit in my palm. Its purpose was simple, one use only, and it would permanently enhance a single ability of my choice. And after 3 days of calculations, simulations, and endless what-if scenarios, I knew exactly what I wanted. Target. Ultimate skill, data collapse, I said. HIME's eyes flickered. Confirm. You wish to enhance your ultimate ability from the data manipulator class? Exactly. For a moment, she hesitated, as if analyzing the moral implication of what I was about to do. Greater than, this ability already allows you to interfere with an opponent's resource variables, HP, MP, and skill timers. Enhancement may destabilize balance. I grinned. Good. Balance is boring. I placed the crystal against my chest. The air around us rippled, heavy with static. Lines of blue-white code surged upward, wrapping around my avatar like living streams of information. The crystal melted into light, sinking into my core. Then came the pulse. My vision split, data flooding every sense, rewriting, aligning, reshaping. The familiar structure of my ultimate ability unfolded before me, a lattice of logic and variables visible to the mind's eye. Data collapse, base function. Greater than manipulates an enemy party's system data. Randomly selects a primary parameter HP, MP, or skill cooldown. Reduces its maximum or increases recovery delay. Simple, clean, limited by fairness. But I was about to make it unfair. Data collapse, revision protocol. The catalyst shimmered, and new lines appeared. Greater than adjustment range, from 50% to 30%. Secondary effects. Optional illusionary overlay on target HUD. Cooldown extension ratio, from 40% to 70%. In other words, I could now erase almost an entire party's chance of fighting back, without them even realizing it. Their displays would still show full HP or normal cooldown timers, while in reality, they were already half dead and helpless. The perfect lie, the perfect weapon. When the light faded, I exhaled slowly. The new power thrummed under my skin, electric and alive. HIME's voice came softly. Greater than, enhancement successful. System registry confirms new parameters for data collapse, revised. Status report, I asked. Greater than, cooldown extended to 12 minutes per activation. Power cost increased by 80%. Area of effect remains at 20 meters. I nodded thoughtfully. Fair trade. Greater than, do you intend to test it now? Of course, I said, smiling faintly. Bring up a simulated raid. The air shimmered. 9 projections materialized in front of me, an entire enemy party, knight, mage, cleric, rogue, archer, monk, druid, summoner, and 1 tank-class giant. Each one based on real player data compiled by the guild over the past year. I stretched my fingers, feeling the faint jingle of the chains at my hand. Let's see how the world breaks, I murmured. Then I activated it. Data collapse, revised. The effect was instantaneous. Blue code exploded outward from my body, sweeping across the battlefield like a digital storm. Every enemy shimmered for half a heartbeat, then froze. No visible damage, no flashy animation. But under the surface, their reality had shifted. HP, 30%. MP, 30%. Cooldowns, plus 70%. To them, though, everything still looked fine. Their HUD still displayed full health. Their skill timers ticked normally. Their confidence would remain, until it was far too late. I smiled. Now, I said, let's add the chains. The shackles of karmic silence burst forth from my hands, 10 luminous tendrils slicing through the air. They struck each target with surgical precision. The moment they made contact, the battlefield went still. No one could move, no one could cast. For 13 seconds, the entire world belonged to me. I raised one hand and whispered, collapse. The illusionary HP bars vanished. The truth bled through. All 9 targets fell in unison, their data dissolving into dust. The simulation ended. Silence filled the cavern. Only the faint hum of my divine item's cooldown remained, glowing faintly like cooling embers. Even HIME seemed momentarily speechless. Finally, she said quietly, Ren-sama, the efficiency of that strategy borders on absolute control. Not control, I said softly. Clarity. She tilted her head. Clarify, please. It's not about domination, I explained, staring at the flickering data remains. It's about understanding how fragile power really is. People think battles are about health bars, cooldowns, or damage output. But those are just illusions. The real war is fought in information. HIME was silent for a moment. You sound almost like a developer. I smiled faintly. Maybe I'm just a better player. We ran more tests. Solo targets, raid scenarios, variable level enemies. Each time, data collapse performed perfectly. The illusion overlay worked exactly as intended. The targets never noticed their disadvantage until defeat. It wasn't brute force. It wasn't raw strength. It was precision, subtlety. The artistry of deception made into numbers. By the end of the testing session, even HIME seemed impressed. Greater than, Ren-sama, with this skill combination, the probability of defeat in equal level encounters has dropped below 1%. I chuckled softly. 1%, I like those odds, keeps things interesting. Greater than, would you like me to record this as Phase 2, integration test? Yeah, I said, and flag it for guild application later. I'll share it with the tactical division once we're ready. Greater than, understood. When the simulation chamber dimmed, I sat down, resting my elbows on my knees. For the first time in a long while, I felt content. Not happy, exactly, but aligned. Everything in Yggdrasil ran on patterns, data flows, feedback loops, self-contained logic. But players like me, we thrived in the space between logic. The cracks, the overlooked edges of code where creativity outplayed power. I stared at my hand again, the silver chains still faintly glowing. To most players, they were tools, weapons, symbols of strength. To me, they were reminders. Reminders that everything, even power, was only as real as the system allowed it to be. And yet, even within that lie, I'd found something true. Freedom. Ren-sama, HIME said softly. You seem satisfied. Maybe, I said, or maybe I'm just starting to see the game for what it really is. And what is that? A mirror, I said. Everything here, every dungeon, every item, every mechanic, it's all a reflection of how we think. How we build worlds, how we hide from them. She floated beside me in silence. Then, softly, greater than, do you believe that hiding is wrong? I smiled faintly beneath my crimson hat. Not if you hide beautifully. I stood, brushing off the dust. All right, HIME, I said. Let's clean up. Tomorrow we start Phase 3. Phase 3, yeah, application testing. I need to see how this works against real opponents. Her eyes flickered. You intend to use it against other players? Only the ones who think numbers make them invincible. She nodded slowly. Understood. Shall I prepare the simulation data from the top-ranked guilds? Do that, I said. And one more thing. Run a projection on guild response rates if we start selling partial data on cooldown manipulation. Her tone sharpened. You intend to monetize your technique. Not the technique, I said with a grin. The rumor of it. HIME paused, then emitted a soft chime of laughter, a rare sound. Truly diabolical, Ren-sama. I prefer, economically creative. She smiled faintly. Understood. That night, when I finally logged out, I found myself lying in the same sterile room, surrounded by the quiet hum of machines. The contrast hit me harder than usual. In one world, I could rewrite reality with thought. In this one, I could barely reach the glass of water by my bed. But as I stared at my hands, weak, thin, human, I still imagined the faint shimmer of chains between my fingers. Because even here, in this broken world, I had something most people didn't. Choice. And that, I decided, was power enough. End of Chapter 23. The Algorithm of God. Chapter 24. Descent into the Inferno. The sky above Muspelheim was bleeding again. Rivers of molten rock snaked between shattered cliffs, and the air shimmered like glass, so hot it warped sound itself. I'd been here countless times before, but this time felt different. Today wasn't for data collection. It wasn't for testing. Today was for proof. The guild had recently discovered a small, unmarked dungeon buried deep beneath the western volcano range, nothing extraordinary at first glance. One of our scouts had flagged it as a minor anomaly, a sub-territory that didn't appear in Yggdrasil's official map data. Normally, I'd delegate exploration to one of the sub-teams. But not this time. This one was mine. I stood before the entrance, a jagged maw carved into basalt, exhaling heat and ash. The dungeon's name shimmered faintly above the portal, written in burning runes. Open angle bracket Phlegethon's hollow close angle bracket. Abyssal depths of the Fireborn. Simple, intimidating, promising. HIME's voice came softly through my interface. Greater than, Ren Sama, environmental scan complete. Estimated monster range, level 85 to 100. Elemental attribute, fire. 4 known floors based on spatial depth reading. Good, I murmured. A decent challenge. Greater than, you intend to enter alone? Of course. That's the point. Greater than, acknowledged. Initializing raid protocol, solo mode. The portal flared red, and I stepped through. Level 1. Cinder plains. The heat hit me like a physical force. Lava flowed in rivers beneath a network of black stone bridges, each creaking under the weight of trapped magic. The air buzzed with energy, living flame that twisted into shapes when it moved. Monsters emerged almost instantly, clusters of fire wraiths, their bodies like burning silk, and ember golems that crawled from the molten rivers, their eyes glowing like furnace glass. Ordinary players would have prepared fire-resistant gear or assembled a specialized party. I just smiled. With a snap of my fingers, 10 silver chains erupted from my hands. The shackles of karmic silence glowed faintly against the red glare. Let's make this quick. The first wraith screamed and lunged. I flicked my hand, one chain shot forward, piercing its chest. The creature froze mid-motion, flames dimming as its data thread seized. Then, before the others could react, I activated data collapse, revised. The world pulsed blue for an instant. The air flickered, like a heartbeat of pure code. The wraiths continued moving, unaware that their HP bars had already dropped to 30%. Their fire burned just as bright, but the illusion was already working. 1 minute later, they were all gone. Nothing left but cinders and silence. The first floor took about 20 minutes to clear, mostly traversal, scanning, and sub-boss detection. The sub-boss was a blazing centurion, level 90, wielding a spear of molten ore. It roared when it saw me, voice shaking the air like thunder. I didn't even bother summoning illusions. This was a test of efficiency, not theatrics. The fight lasted exactly 53 seconds. Chains, collapse, strike, done. HIME's voice chimed in. Greater than, divine item cooldown, 1 hour. Ultimate skill cooldown, 12 minutes. Shall we rest, Ren-sama? I looked around at the smoldering ruins of the Centurion's arena. No need. I'll clear the next floor before the cooldown's done. Greater than, understood. I continued downward. Level 2. The smoldering forge. The second floor was darker, narrower, metallic walls dripping with molten ore, rivers of liquid steel flowing like veins through the earth. I moved quietly, analyzing patterns. Every 20 meters, a set of sentry-type monsters spawned, forged sentinels, humanoid constructs with bodies made of bronze and runes etched along their arms. They carried massive hammers glowing with heat. Level 93 on average. Perfect, I murmured. Mid-tier resistance type. I launched my attack before they could detect me. Chains flashed outward, 5 targets frozen mid-strike, their hammers halting inches from my face. Data collapse. Their stats bled away invisibly. The illusion layer kept them unaware, they thought their HP was still full. They attacked, believing themselves strong. Their hammers shattered on impact. Their bodies followed. It was almost disappointing how easy it was. HIME spoke again. Greater than, efficiency rate, 98%. Estimated total floor clearance time, 34 minutes. Record it, I said. Mark this strategy for high-speed solo runs. Greater than, recorded. The sub-boss of the second floor waited inside a chamber shaped like a forged cathedral, a giant elemental blacksmith known as Magmarian, keeper of the anvil. It stood 10 meters tall, every motion leaving trails of sparks. Level 95, a tank-type boss with massive defense and AoE smashes. Under normal conditions, even a full party could take over 2 hours to bring it down. I was curious how long I'd last. Ren-sama, HIME said cautiously, its armor class resists binding-type magic. Then it's a good test. I drew a breath. Begin. The chains shot forward, wrapping around Magmarian's legs. It roared, shaking the chamber, trying to break free, only to find itself locked in place. The shackles glowed red, straining but holding. Then I whispered, "Collapse." A pulse of blue code radiated through the arena. Magmarian faltered. The flames on its body flickered weaker, its swing slowed by invisible lag. It never realized its HP was already reduced to a third. I stepped forward, summoned a phantom blade from the data around me, and struck once. The echo of the impact rang like a church bell. Magmarian's body crumbled, collapsing into molten dust. 1 hour since entering. 2 floors cleared. Even I was a little impressed. Greater than, cooldown on divine item, 24 minutes remaining, HIME reported. Ultimate skill recharged and stable. Perfect, I said, on to the next. Level 3. The Crimson Labyrinth. This floor was different, less like a forge, more like a living maze. Walls of red crystal reflected my movements in dozens of mirrored fragments. Lava dripped from the ceiling in slow, viscous streams that hissed when they hit the obsidian floor. The monsters here were smarter, flame eidolons and firebound archmages, spellcasters that specialized in AoE and illusions. For a while, I let them attack. I wanted to study their pattern. Their illusions were clumsy, visual overlays only, no real data distortion. When one of them tried to mirror my image, I laughed softly. Cute. I released a chain. It pierced its chest. The illusion broke. Data collapse. Its mana bar, visible to me only, dropped instantly to 30%. The creature tried to cast again. Its staff sputtered, failing halfway. It looked down in confusion. Then I erased it. The fights came faster after that. Every corner, every narrow passage, another group of enemies, another set of test cases. By the time I reached the sub-boss room, both the divine item and the ultimate skill were fully recharged. The sub-boss was Vulcanus, the Fire Seraph, level 97, a hybrid of angelic form and molten metal wings. It hovered above a pool of magma, surrounded by circles of fire that pulsed like hearts. It looked at me and spoke in an ancient tongue, half code, half flame. "Mortal, you should not walk alone in fire." I grinned. "You'd be surprised what I can walk through." The fight started with a flare that could have blinded a lesser player. I moved like smoke, sidestepping every beam of fire it unleashed. When its wings spread, I saw the opening. Chains, shackles of karmic silence. They struck like lightning, wrapping around its arms and wings. The seraph screamed, trying to ascend. Too late. Data collapse, revised. The pulse was subtle but absolute. The world around us dimmed. The angel froze mid-motion, fire sputtering. Its HP read 30%, but to its own eyes, it still glowed full and proud. I stepped closer. "Illusions are only dangerous," I whispered, "when you believe in them." The final strike was clean, no drama, no flourish. Just quiet light. The dungeon's third floor was silent when I walked out of the chamber. Not a single ember stirred. "Greater than, Ren-sama," HIME said softly, "all 3 floors cleared in 1 hour and 6 minutes. You have exceeded previous solo raid records by a factor of 4. I smiled faintly. Let's see if the next floor can make me sweat. Greater than, divine item cooldown complete. Ultimate skill, ready, proceed. Proceed, I said, stepping toward the massive crystal gate that led downward. The ground trembled faintly beneath my feet. The 4th floor's gateway pulsed red, darker, heavier, alive. I stopped for a moment at the threshold, gazing down into the flickering abyss below. Something about the silence there felt different. Older. I couldn't explain why, but for the first time that day, I felt something stir, a thrill, sharp and electric. Not fear, anticipation. I adjusted my crimson hat and smiled. "Let's see what kind of devil lives at the bottom of the fire," I said quietly. Then I stepped forward, and the world swallowed me whole. End of Chapter 24. Descent into the Inferno. 0 comments 0 vote. Chapter 25. The Infernal Crown. Chapter 25. The Infernal Crown. The 4th floor of Phlegethon's Hollow was silent. No wind, no movement, only the low hum of molten energy flowing beneath black glass. The descent dropped me into a massive arena, a circular basin of obsidian surrounded by jagged magma pillars. Above, the sky burned crimson, though there was no real sun here. The entire space felt suspended, cut off from time and sound. I took one step forward. The ground pulsed like a living thing. HIME's voice broke the silence. Greater than, Ren-sama, power signature detected. Caution advised. Level reading, 100. Classification, core boss entity. Name, greater than, designation, Ifrit Tyrant, Lord of the Deep Flame. The air split apart. From the molten pit at the center, something rose. A creature of pure fire and steel, massive, four-armed, crowned with molten horns that curved backward like blades. Chains of magma hung from its wrists, dripping embers that melted the ground. Each of its eyes burned like miniature suns. The sound it made wasn't a roar, it was the crack of a planet breaking in half. I smiled faintly. Well, that's dramatic. Greater than, engagement will begin in 5 seconds, HIME said. Good. I adjusted my hat. Let's see if data can outthink a god. The Ifrit Tyrant struck first. It moved faster than something that size should be able to. One arm swung wide, trailing fire that shattered the obsidian around me. I dove aside, chains flashing instinctively to anchor myself to the ground. The air burned. The heat was real. Even through the resistances of my doppelganger form, my HP bar ticked down by 10% just from proximity. I exhaled, slow and even. Okay, don't get hit. The tyrant slammed a fist into the ground. Lava exploded upward in a geyser. I leapt, spun midair, and unleashed illusion shift. A phantom double appeared, drawing its attention just long enough for me to land safely behind it. Then I activated the shackles of karmic silence. 10 silver chains erupted outward, glowing bright against the red light. They struck true, wrapping around its forearms and torso. The Ifrit roared, body thrashing violently. The ground quaked. The chains tightened, but not fully. The creature resisted with sheer raw force. Greater than, binding effectiveness reduced to 60%, HIME reported. Its fire attribute is destabilizing the restraint. Fine, I said through gritted teeth. Then we improvise. I extended my left hand, initiating data collapse, revised. The blue pulse surged out, colliding with the Ifrit's body. For a second, nothing happened. Then, slowly, its fire dimmed. HIME's display updated, HP ratio dropped from 100% to 30%. But it wasn't enough. The Ifrit adapted. Its flames flared again, stronger. The illusion wavered. The monster wasn't sentient, but its core AI had combat reactive scripts. It was rewriting its regeneration subroutine mid-battle. I cursed under my breath. Clever code. Greater than, ultimate skill cooldown, 11 minutes remaining. Too long. Greater than, divine item, 4 minutes remaining. Too long, I repeated. The tyrant lunged, both arms raised. I barely dodged, rolling behind a pillar as a wall of fire consumed the space I'd just stood in. The heat burned through my coat. My HP dropped another 15%. Alright, I muttered. No choice. I opened my inventory and pulled a small, glowing vial, a cache item labeled Chrono Extractor. A one-use consumable that erases cooldowns instantly. Illegal in tournaments. Perfect for emergencies. Time to cheat like a professional. I crushed it between my fingers. Light flared. My entire HUD blinked green. Greater than all cooldowns reset. Perfect. The chains pulsed again, reigniting with full strength. I activated Karmic Silence a second time, this time focusing on precision rather than brute restraint. The 10 threads moved like snakes, slipping around the monster's limbs, neck, and spine, embedding themselves in the molten metal beneath the fire. The tyrant froze mid-motion. Before it could adapt, I triggered data collapse again. The pulse hit harder this time, like a storm of blue lightning cracking through the red haze. Its core flickered. HP, 100% right pointing arrow 30%. Mana output, 100% right pointing arrow 30%. Skill cooldowns, plus 70%. Even its AI response time stuttered. Greater than, targets casting subroutine disrupted, HIME confirmed. Restraint window, 12 seconds. Then 12's all I need. I stepped forward, both hands raised. My illusion layers flared open, 12 copies of me unfolding like petals, each one holding a different weapon form: blade, staff, spear, chain, bow. The illusion didn't just look real, it acted real, feeding false data back into the system. The tyrant's threat sensors split 12 ways. It tried to divide its attack protocols. That was its final mistake. I moved through the mirage, weaving the attacks into one seamless strike, a storm of shapes and shadows converging. The silver chains tightened. The fire dimmed. Then I whispered, collapse complete. Dash dash dash. The world went white. The explosion wasn't fire, it was energy collapse. The Ifrit's body dissolved into data particles, consumed by its own interrupted code. When the light cleared, only silence remained. The arena was cracked, still glowing faintly. My health sat at 43%. My mana at 19. My chains hung loosely around my hands, pulsing with residual light. I exhaled slowly. Raid clear. Greater than. Confirmation. Boss entity destroyed. Dungeon status. Complete. Then, softly. Greater than. Ren-sama. Detection of unique reward. Category. World-class item. I froze. Repeat that. Greater than. You have fulfilled the hidden condition for Phlegethon's Hollow. First solo clear of a 4-tier dungeon with a level 100 boss. Reward. WCI designation number 17. Item materializing. The ground before me glowed. A column of light burst upward, and from it, something floated down gently, small, simple, glimmering. A pendant. No, a chain. Dash dash dash. World-class item acquired. Open angle bracket. The infernal crown. Close angle bracket. Category. Accessory. Neck. Rank. World-class. Tier 17 of 20. Dash dash dash. Item description. Greater than. Forged in the heart of Phlegethon's Hollow, this artifact embodies the principle of absolute dominance through information and endurance. It was designed for the one who stands alone amid countless foes. Visual appearance. A delicate chain of black gold links with a single crimson gemstone set at the center, burning faintly like an ember. When worn, faint glyphs circle the wearer's neck, vanishing into their skin. Passive effects. Reduces all incoming damage from multiple enemies by 3% per attacker, max 60%. Auto-adjusts resistance to the dominant elemental type of the area. Converts 10% of received magic damage into MP regeneration. Grants immunity to illusion detection and data type analysis. Active ability. Sovereign Loop. Cooldown. 1 hour. Greater than. Freezes all opponents within a 30-meter radius for 3 seconds in real time, regardless of status resistance. During this duration, time flow for the user increases by 300%. Effect cannot be resisted, dispelled, or prevented by anti-time fields. When activated, the pendant's gem ignites like a small sun, and the air around the user distorts. Lore note. Greater than. When the fire consumes everything, the one who stands alone becomes the flame's master. Dash dash dash. I stared at it for a long time. Simple, elegant, brutal. Exactly what I needed. This, I whispered, holding the pendant up against the molten light, is beautiful. Greater than. It ranks among the top 20 world-class items, HIME said. Intended for solo operations. The synergy with your current build exceeds 97%. That's almost like destiny, I murmured. Greater than. Do you believe in destiny, Ren-sama? I smiled faintly. No, but I believe in statistics. Dash dash dash. I slipped the pendant around my neck. The moment the gem touched my skin, I felt it, the data hum, the faint pulse of Yggdrasil's system recognizing something ancient. The pendant's light sank into me, merging with the shimmering circuits across my doppelganger body. New parameters appeared on my interface. Passive ability. Infernal Loop, integrated. Defense multipliers adjusted for multi-target engagements. I flexed my hands. The chains shimmered in response, brighter, sharper. A perfect trinity now, illusion, data, and control. Dash dash dash. Greater than. Ren-sama, HIME said quietly, this achievement will be logged globally. You are now registered as the first confirmed solo world-class dungeon victor. Let them see, I said softly. Let the world remember that information beats power. Greater than. Acknowledged. For a long time, I stood in the silence of the empty arena. The heat no longer bothered me. The fire felt almost comforting. Finally, I looked upward toward the crimson ceiling of the dungeon. I murmured, I understand the game better than ever now. Greater than, meaning, everyone else plays for strength. I play for control. I touched the pendant again, feeling its heartbeat sync with mine. For the first time, I said quietly, I don't just play Yggdrasil. I smiled beneath my crimson hat. I define it. Dash dash dash. End of chapter 25. The Infernal Crown. Dash dash dash. Checkmark summary of the WCI, the Infernal Crown. Type. Accessory, neck. Category. WCI rank 17/20. Passive effects. Plus 3% damage reduction per additional attacker, up to 60%. Auto resistance adjustment to environmental element. Converts 10% of magic damage received into MP region. Immunity to illusion detection, data scan. Active effect, sovereign loop. Freezes all enemies in 30 meters radius for 3 seconds real time. User gains 300% time speed up during effect. Unresistible, undispellable. 1 hour cooldown.